How's it going, all you minties? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions, and it is finally here. Not my overview, but the actual book, Blacksad, They All Fall Down, Part 1. I've been waiting years to read this, and yes, I realize it's only Part 1, but I will take it. Let's take a look at this book together. Before getting started, I do want to thank the folks at Dark Horse for sending us a copy of this book. So, this is one of my most wanted books to come out in 2022. I've been waiting for it for what seems like years, but here it is, Blacksad, Volume 6, really, Part 1, and I'll talk a little bit about that here in a few. But They All Fall Down, Part 1. The award-winning international bestseller by Juan Diaz Canales and by Juanjo Guarnido. So they are back, the two Spanish storytellers. Originally this was published in France, but I think it got translated into Spanish about a month or so afterward. Here's what the spine looks like. And then the back of the book. Retailing for $19.99. Now, probably thinking, man, that is thin. It is, especially when we've been waiting years, but oh my gosh, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. It was worth it. And it's worth that it is this skinny. I'll take a little bit by little bit, as long as I keep getting some Blacksad in my life. Now, this is Volume 6. So here it is, along with the other releases in America by Dark Horse. See, you see Blacksad Volume 1 here. This is pretty much 3 of these albums in one. So when it was released here, they decided to take 3 of the European albums and put them in one book. And then we had A Silent Hill, and then Amarillo, and then of course this latest book right here, They All Fall Down. And I'll probably do a separate video on the importance of Blacksad and what makes it so amazing. But if you've not read those, it is in my top 10 favorite Dark Horse comics of all time. It is for sure up there among my favorite anthropomorphic comic of all time. When you have anthropomorphic animals, you have animals that are bipedal, so they're walking around on 2 legs, like Usagi Yojimbo or Scrooge McDuck. Characters like that. But it's a lot different than Scrooge McDuck. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. So, no dust jacket, just art on board, similar to the releases that came before. But absolutely, if you've not read this, you don't have to read them in chronological order, because the stories just make sense as is. But I strongly suggest checking out the first one, especially with how cheap it is. Alright, let's crack this one open and talk about the story in here without going into spoilers. And of course, showing off this beautiful artwork by Guarnido. Before cracking the book open, I did want to do a size comparison to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like compared to a standard size trade paperback, just the size. But this is what European volumes look like what I called albums, because that's how they come out. They don't. I talked a little bit about that actually in the pulp overview. How in Europe they do have single issues of comics, but it's a very popular format to come out like this, like in a graphic novel. And I think that's what Ed Brubaker and a lot of independent creators really enjoy. Here is what your end paper looks like. That is just gorgeous. I love to see just the behind the scenes, kind of like what we got with pulp with Blacksad. So Dark Horse presents Blacksad. Oh my gosh, it is finally back. Here are your credits: Juan Diaz Canales, Juanjo Guarnido. Like I mentioned, 2 Spanish creators, but the Spanish market for comics isn't as big as the French market, so that's why they publish their book in French. And then, of course, it gets translated all over Europe. And eventually comes here. The important people that I do want to note here, though, are people that don't get a lot of recognition, but they do such a phenomenal job. And that is Diana Schutz and Brandon Kander. And the lettering, because, of course, the lettering is translated into English, is done by Tom Orszewski and Luis Athena Buales. I'm sure I'm butchering those names. Hey, but I got the Spanish names right. Claro que sí. Okay, but the reason I mentioned Diana and Brandon was because when translating comics, you have the difficult task of also translating the tone or expressions. There are a lot of times that you want to make sure the story is going through the exact motions that the original comic went through. You want the readers to experience exactly what the creators want them to experience. However, as we all know, sometimes there are sayings in other countries that aren't necessarily meant for the American audience, or English audience rather. There's a lot of sayings that don't make any sense. So I think that is an amazing feat, and to do that, holy crap, especially when you have a character like John Blacksad. All right, so let's talk about this. I talked about how there are anthropomorphic animals in here, but this is a noir type of story. So it's a crime noir story set in the 50s in America. The only thing is that instead of humans, we have animals. And here he is, John Blacksad, the main protagonist. The reason we have all of this, he's a private detective. And this is his buddy who appeared in the second book. This is Weekly, who's like a little journalist. He's a news reporter. And as all great stories, it starts with Shakespeare in the play. Shakespeare in the play. No, Shakespeare in the Park. Oh my gosh. And this is where you meet the character of Iris Allen, who is leading the play, and a bunch of other characters right here. And you have some returning characters in here, but what I want you to do is fall in love with this artwork. Now, I said this was a crime noir, and I'm sure you're probably thinking, what the hell? What are you talking about? This is all bright, beautiful colors. There's no dark alleys. There's not a guy that's smoking behind the scenes. Well, he is smoking right here. Yeah. But yes, the tone of the book is different no matter what. Throughout each volume. Amarillo, was a lot different than, of course, A Silent Hell. And this is no different. This immediately starts with a different tone. The colors are different, as you can see, it's daylight. But then, of course, it shifts into the night, the dark of the city. I love that. So, in this chapter, this is part 1. I don't know how many parts there are going to be. I know this was released digitally first. And I know part 2 is already out digitally, so I don't know how long it's going to take Dark Horse to bring it. But I love reading my books in collected editions. I do the same thing with manga like Berserk, when people are like, have you read the latest chapter? No, I'm waiting for the physical book. But this first book right here of They All Fall Down is pretty much about the character of Blacksad, John Blacksad. Like I said, he was a private detective, or is a private detective, and he is hired by this gentle bat right here, who's named Kenneth Clark, who is the president of the Transport Union in New York. Now, there is a killer that has been hired to go after him by the name of Logan. If he is not a Wolverine, I don't know if that was a missed opportunity or what. But that's pretty much what his task is, to protect Kenneth from being killed by this assassin. Now, there's also another story that's developing through here, because there's nothing as coincidence in the world of Blacksad. But this is where we meet the character of Louis Solomon, who is an influential man who has an appetite for power. But he wants to pretty much reconstruct the city of New York. So it's all about this transport union and how the union is likely just pretty much resisting these cuts that the city is trying to make for public transportation. So all of this again taking place in New York City. So of course there's a lot of political movements and powers at hand. It's cool because, as we've seen in the past stories, we've seen a story about a murder mystery, how Hollywood treats its starlets, or a story about a musician in the past, or a story about just driving through, where was he going, Oklahoma or Wisconsin? I can't remember. Then, of course, a story about racism. In here, it's about the political movement and the corruption that takes place within all of these politicians. It's really cool to see this. So, Blacksad goes undercover as a transport worker to try to find the assassin. And what is Shakespeare in the play? What is Iris? What does all of this have to do with anything? Everything. And look at the amount of detail in the colors in these watercolors. Oh my gosh. It is just to die for. Like, the video does not do this justice. His art is so intricate that each panel tells its story by itself. I love the angles that he uses, and of course, I love the lighting. It's so different, you know, when you go from night to day, and depending on what part of the city you're from. Now, I'm not going to flip too much through here, because I want people to read this, and as well as you should. Now, I mentioned the translators earlier, Schutz and Kander, and I do want to note that they make Canales' script just come to life. I think the translation is done so well. There is some cynical, hard-bitten, with a dash of humor language in here. I love it. Now, of course, like most crime noir stories, this is mature content. You are going to find violence in here, not over the top, and you're going to have sexual situations in here, but again, not over the top. They keep it classy, and damn is this story good. Do not be turned away because it happens to be a cat that solves crime. If you're doing that, you're turning away from one of the greatest stories ever. I mean, this is up there with, to me, with Ed Brubaker as far as like crime noir stories. It was such a treat to get to read this, and I have been waiting what seems like, I think 5 or so years to read this latest volume. It's only 64 pages, but as you can see, each panel is just completely worth waiting on. Again, I just love flipping through here. I could be quiet and this book could sell itself. But then, when am I ever quiet? Okay, as far as the extras, there's just a couple of extras here. The most important one being this, the notes on the translation. So even the title had to be changed a little bit, because the title, the original title in Spanish is Todo Cae, and in here they decided to call it They All Fall Down instead of Todo Cae, which is Everything Falls. So minor changes like that. You know, you have to change some of the jokes in here to make sense, but also there's different panels why they decided to make some changes. I love that. Here are the bios on the 2 creators, and then the credits for the European staff, and then the editors, and of course the publishers. But this is Blacksad, They All Fall Down Part 1. If you read it, let me know in the comments down below. It does have sewn binding, and there's that little eye right there, but that's it. That, as they say, is that. Hurry up, Part 2. I cannot wait to read it. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsors. If you live in Europe and are interested in buying and pre-ordering Omnis, then you should definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices for Marvel and DC books within the EU, flat rate shipping of €12 for all EU countries, bulletproof packaging, and all emails will be answered within 24 hours. They offer a huge selection of out-of-print books. Just head over to waltzcomicshop.com for more great deals and rare titles. And for a limited time, you can use the code nearmintcon, all one word at the checkout, to get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order of over €40. Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for Omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this hardcover. Let me know in the comments down below if you are picking this up, if you're a big fan of Blacksad, if you're waiting for part 2 to come out before you read this one. If you have any questions, comments, leave them all down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications to let you know when our videos are going live. We are on Spreadshop and Patreon, amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. And everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.